Well, hello, and again, welcome to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host this evening. My name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night, we chatted about the concept of the Morlocks and the Elo, and how our masters are following a very single-minded path toward their own self-destruction. Personally, I have no problem with that, but first it seems that they have to wipe us all out in order to achieve their great work. Now, how mutating into flesh-eating man-apes is a great work is something that frankly is, well, beyond me. And this is not my opinion. This is the opinion of one of their own, a fellow by the name of H.G. Wells, who 100 years ago wrote a story called The Time Machine. And he himself mapped out the great work of the masters to survive the event, I suppose you can call surviving from being roughly human into a flesh-eating man-ape surviving. H.G. Wells actually projected this for his own people, and for some reason they're following this plan. Yeah, we don't really think like they do, and they don't think like we do, and I honest to God, don't know of any way of bridging this gap short of the French solution, which I personally enjoy. 100 years ago, the French started lopping off the heads of the aristocracy, the masters, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, tonight I thought we would chat about how our diet is so bad, so poor, and so lacking in basic vitamins and minerals and, yes, believe it or not, metals, that we are basically falling apart from the moment we are born. And add food poisoning, lack of oxygen, lack of a strong magnetic field, and it's not really surprising that we barely make it into our 60s. This is very different than our previous episode on food additives and fillers, which is our master's way of poisoning us into mindless submission. Poison the body, and you poison the brain. Basic chemistry, and they are very good at it. And we are very stupid for following it, myself included. And I still have this roll of fat around my middle, around my belly, that will never go away, no matter how much exercising I do. I mean, I barely eat anything, I barely sleep, and this is for quite a long time. And I will never get rid of this roll of fat around my belly, and that's from eating at McDonald's 3 times a day for several years. It was really, really stupid, but damn, it tasted good. It's amazing what you can do with a industrial chemical factory making flavors for food. You know, back after the last event, after our Earth had been blasted clean of all the pollutants that our ancestors had left behind, though there are still massive areas of this planet that are nothing but green glass being the remains of a nuclear explosion. Some of these areas of green glass are still radioactive after tens of thousands of years. In fact, there are sites in India, for example, that have had to have been evacuated by the Indian government because they are still radioactive from a nuclear war that happened so long ago. You have to read about it in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a 100,000-page history of our world. And of course, you know, we are doing our very best to add to the legacy of radioactive poisoning. Someday we'll talk about the effects of depleted uranium weapons. These things, which of course the Americans are using all over the world, and in our own country, in Hawaii, for example, these things are so lethal. They kill the enemy, they kill the enemy's families, they kill the enemy's babies, and they also kill the soldier who fired the weapon, their families, and their babies, their pets, their friends. It's really quite amazing. It's very similar to what we'll talk about later, cobalt-60 poisoning, which is the poor man's nuclear weapon. And that's quite scary as well. Now, you know, if you cannot wait for one of my, what I call executive overviews of our world, and you want a detailed, fact-filled breakdown on cobalt-60, depleted uranium, that sort of thing as a weapon, go to rense.com, R-E-N-S-E.com, and look up all the interviews with a gentleman by the name of Tim Rifat, R-I-F-A-T. Tim Rifat, as well as the host, Mr. Jeff Rense, are both brilliant fellows. And while I give you, the 15-minute news of the day, these gentlemen will give you the blow-by-blow, fact-by-fact, this date in history went to this date in history. They will give you the detailed descriptions that will explain this whole nightmare. I do have to warn you, though, even though I grew up with this living nightmare of spooks and Jesuit assassins and Vatican controlling the mafia and army intelligence nonsense. Even I get overwhelmed when I visit rents.com. But you have to do it, especially if you have people that you love, that you care about. You come to me for fast food, the 15-minute news of the day. You go to rents.com for true education. So, anyway, basic health, basic nutrition is not taught anywhere in any medical school in the Western world. Doctors get 1 semester of high school level nutrition training, and then that's it. I had, at one time, what we call in the United States pizza face. I had acne so severe that my entire face was distorted. Not that I'm that much to look at in the first place. I literally did not appear to be human. I had oozing sores all over my face, the size of golf balls, the size of tennis balls. And they oozed goo, I suppose, liquid, all day long, all night long. And what was modern medicine's answer to this? Expose me to extreme sun lamps to burn the skin, actually to weld the skin shut so these eruptions would not occur. And for a while that worked. So after, a decade or more of being the Elephant Man, and the front of my shirt was soaked with the fluid dripping down from my face all day long. And my face was red and swollen. If I looked even male, you wouldn't believe it. And then one day, and I don't know how to tell you this, one day an old witch came to my rescue. And when I say witch, I mean that literally. This old woman was very smart, still is, very, very based in reality for a witch. And she was ancient when I was a child. And somehow she's still alive today, and still a bully and a thug, and, well, leave it at that. So she visited me out in the desert where I was working on a very major real estate project, and she barked orders at me. She has very few social graces. Well, then again, neither do I. She said, take vitamin C, 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Take vitamin AD, 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day. We now call vitamin AD omega-3. It's fish oil. And I'd run out of ideas, and I was desperate. So you know what I did? I listened to the old witch, and it worked. Literally, the very next day, I felt like every pore in my face was a window that had been nailed shut for decades. And then all of a sudden, each little window had opened. And I can still to this day remember the feeling. It was like a breeze was blowing through my face. The relief was incredible. And I was cured. Of course, it took over a year before my body, relearned what it needed to do to be healthy. And even now, decades later, I still take the occasional same mega doses of vitamins, but more as a maintenance dose. Now, you're going to ask me, were there side effects? I said, absolutely, there were side effects. I had a blood test done in New Zealand around 2008. I was exhausted. The experience in New Zealand just basically just wore me out to the point where I went to a doctor. I needed a note from my employer. I was going to be out for a couple of days, and she had no clue. That's sort of the battle cry of New Zealand, don't have a clue. She sent me to the emergency room at the hospital, and during the course of 8 hours, where I actually was able to take a nap, which was nice. They came back and kept taking blood samples from me. They came and took 3 sets of blood samples. And I was just happy to have a nice bed to lie on and sleep. I was sleeping on the floor at the time in this cold water flat I was in. So a nice comfy bed was nice. I didn't ask them why they had to take the same samples over and over again. And I found out later at the end of the day that the reason they were doing that is they just couldn't believe the results they were getting. This nice little doctor, his name was Oliver, he came in at the end of the day and said, Charlie, you're something of a mystery to us. And I'm going, oh, joy, another mystery. He said, yeah, well, according to our tests, you're only 23 years old. I was 48 at the time. And I said, well, yes, Oliver, I explained that to you earlier in the day. I study alternative medicine, getting food. He literally put his hands in front of my face, took a step back and turned his own face away, said, no, don't tell me. Just whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. But don't tell me anything. This, of course, is modern medicine's reaction to reality. And besides the fact I now have gray hair, thanks to New Zealand, and I still have some visible acne scars on my face, I guess I look like I'm in my late 30s. I have no idea anymore. So that's the side effect of megavitamins, and a few other things. We'll talk about that. Needless to say, after Alice had come and visit me, the old witch, out in the desert, I became more aware of what I was eating. And I looked at the filth that was being sold at the local supermarket, a place called Stater Brothers, and what was being passed off as food in general to the American people. I soon discovered the joys of organic markets, and after getting over the initial shock of the prices, I discovered, as time passed, that the more clean the foods I ate were, the healthier I was becoming. And as I allowed my body to do what it was originally designed to do, repair itself naturally, when it had what it needed to do the work of repairing your own body, my body started to let go of the poisons, the toxins, the plastics, the chemicals that it had been holding on to for years, in a desperate attempt, of course, to keep it from, really killing me. I think I went through what could be called a major cleansing at least 9 times. And each of time, things were expelled from my body, and with some force, I might add. Things that had no place being inside of anything living, let alone being inside of me. The thing that shocked me was, after each of these rather explosive cleansings, I noticed something that had never before occurred to me. I could think more clearly. I could see more clearly the world around me. And I still remember the day when I saw color for the first time. I was in my early 20s, I think, at that point. Up until then, the world was like looking at an old black and white television set with rabbit ears. No matter what you did, you could never get the picture into focus, and it was still black and white and kind of fuzzy. I was working at the Disney Studios in Burbank at the time, and it was lunch. I was sitting in my car, eating boiled eggs and spring onions. And I looked out my windshield. The world just sort of snapped into focus, complete with color. The poisons in my body were leaching out, and it was allowing my mind, my brain, to be clear. It was astonishing. Another item, by the way, I highly recommend is colloidal silver. Colloidal silver, a couple hundred years ago, our ancestors, our grandparents, when they were farmers, they discovered that if they dropped a silver dollar into a bucket of milk they had just milked from the cow, the milk lasted days longer than it normally would. Research was done in New York and a university about 100 years ago. And they came up with the concept of adding silver to your diet. In fact, silverware, the term we still use. Silverware originally was made out of silver, so everything you ate was actually coming in contact with real silver. Real silver is like 100% effective in killing diseases. It's not like the drugs the pharmaceutical companies give us that's like 97% effective. So colloidal silver literally are little molecules of silver suspended in water. And there's a place called SOTA-instruments.com, SOTA, S-O-T-A, the word instruments.com in Canada. And they sell all kinds of really cool little non-medical devices. I highly recommend their colloidal silver maker. I have one. And you make your own colloidal silver. So basically you're just taking a little small amount of 0.999 pure silver, adding it to your water, and you drink it. The amazing thing about colloidal silver, as I said, 100% effective against disease. The other thing I really like is food-grade hydrogen peroxide. You can buy this online from any good chemist. But it must be food-grade. Don't go to the grocery store and try to drink, the stuff that you use to wash the color out of your own hair. That stuff is garbage. You need food-grade hydrogen peroxide. And you have to remember this stuff is very, very, very powerful. You've got to distill it at least twice. Read the instructions very, very carefully. Basically, 1 drop of food-grade hydrogen peroxide in like 5-gallon bottle of water is still a little too strong. So you want to distill it even more, so be careful. But the benefits are amazing. It actually adds oxygen into your body. And as we chatted about in a previous episode, our bodies are starving for oxygen every single day, which is why we age, and why all of these terrifying diseases we have today would simply die in the presence of oxygen. I'm talking about cancer. I'm talking about the man-made disease called AIDS. Actually, the last time I checked, there were over like 900 variations of the AIDS virus. I mean, that just frankly doesn't happen in nature, but we haven't had nature in quite a while. So at the moment, I am disgustingly healthy, and you can be too. And you can be that way with no pain, no drugs, no chemicals, no vast fortunes spent, no radiation, no chemotherapy. Just a little awareness. But as always, it's entirely up to you. Being healthy means being happy. Being healthy allows you to think clearly. And this is also part of our plan here at the 2012fad.com for the future. I really hope that you have a plan too. Anyway, for all of us here at the 2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehawk, wishing you a really good day and reminding you, please, keep a good thought.